Hey guys, how are you? Thank you for joining me today. Man, I am just absolutely buzzing today. There is so much energy for me personally. There's a lot of insight, information, and wisdom floating around, and I've had these amazing conversations that started yesterday, late until the night, and all day this morning so far. And I'm like in my zone of joy and happiness and bliss. And it's a really good place to be. And so, yeah, I wanted to share a little bit of this information. I think, those of you that have been following the series so far know that part of what I'm working through is stress trauma and how that is stored in my physical body. And what I'm discovering, especially by talking with a lot of my peers and friends and those that I feel, they're on this pathway with me. We all seem to be experiencing a dramatic surfacing of patterns and behaviors and things that perhaps weren't there before, or they weren't we weren't seeing them as clearly as we are now. Some of it feels very, very old, very, definitely very out there, related to kind of that ancient or ancestral type buried stuff. We're talking about the stuff that generationally is passed down, behaviors and patterns and feelings around certain ways that we do things. And I've had a few revelations related to, I've talked a little bit about boundaries before, but I wanted to really expand more into energy vampires and boundaries today, because I've been actively dealing with this for a period of time. But I've been talking about it during this, identifying my self-abuses of self-sacrifice, and not getting an equitable exchange in return when I am engaging with somebody. And y'all, I thought I was getting a handle on this stuff. And then one of my friends and peers and mentors, yesterday called everybody out in our group chat about how we're missing the obvious signs of energy vampires, and realizing that, thank God I have her. She's modeling a much healthier behavior of understanding and recognizing energy vampires and having better energetic boundaries. But what I realized in that moment is I have this learned behavior in front of me, because I was taught, it was modeled in my world growing up, that in order to serve humanity, in order to be of service to others and to help them, that leading with a servant's heart is another term that gets tossed around a lot, meant that I had to be available at the drop of a hat. I had to respond immediately. That everything else in my world had to come to a grinding halt and be sacrificed for the other person or group of people. And that was modeled to me. And it occurred to me yesterday how jacked up that is. It's like incredibly dysfunctional, and it is self-abuse in the terms of there's no self-love in that, there's no care, there's no boundaries. And so I discovered a whole new pattern existing about how I was modeled serving humanity. My dad is this amazing person with such a massive heart, and is full of compassion, and in his chosen life mission, he was a service to people. But what I saw that modeled as is in 16-hour work days, the minute anyone called, everything would come to a stop and he would immediately respond. And I, if it was to go out and care for that person, as a minister, as a counselor of people, as a shepherd of people, if somebody was in the hospital, it was, okay, I will stop eating dinner and come immediately. Okay, I can't be at the kids' games, or because I need to do this instead, or I have to miss family time because I'm required to be here to do the thing. And it was such a blended part of our lives. And then even seeing that play out now, where I see his responses if an email comes in or if a bill is due, it's a trauma fear response that is initiated within him to immediately respond. And that's related to, quote unquote, doing the right thing, being a person of integrity. Like, it's been mislabeled because of misinformation and gaslighting. And again, in our family, it's a deep generational issue. And so seeing that awareness point in what had been modeled to me was a massive breakthrough yesterday for me to be like, oh my God, I got it. I'm having an epiphany here of where this next layer of work is that I need to do on myself. So I wanted to talk more about that because as I'm learning that, I want to get in deeper at some point talking about communication stuff. But what came through to me today is we were talking about energy vampires in our group. And the problem is I let them in. And once you've let a vampire in the house, if you use the concepts out in folklore and cultural, pop culture, vampires have to be invited in. But once you invite them in, they have the run of the house. They can come in whenever they want and suck you dry. Energy vampires, the exact same thing. There is an initiation, which usually doesn't involve even really knocking on the door. It's just a whoosh in some sort of a barrage of information or a question. And how it came up in the conversation, because I was totally missing it. And this is how my pattern, the light kind of expanded on the pattern, was in the statement being made is, well, I don't really know the person this well, but this person has reached out to me and they're asking me this question. And how do I respond? Because it's kind of like a out of left field. It's a little bit of a maybe more personal, intimate type of question. This person's demanding that I answer this question. How do I really respond? And this is when our peer jumped in and said, yo, energy vampire, stop it right now. Do not respond. Here's what you need to do. And I think the rest of us like, well, but they're just asking a question. And that's what triggered in me to realize that I have this immediate response because I want to help, because I have a gift and a talent of explaining things and helping people, but I'm doing it in the wrong way, or have been doing it in the wrong way. And so recognizing when an energetic vampire is throwing you something and then knowing how to enter into that space is going to be crucial for all of us. So I personally need to go on a journey to figure out what else that looks like. I think just seeing something posed as a question was a massive eye-opener for me, because if a question is posed, I feel compelled to answer it. Instead of saying, no, it's a violation of my energetic boundaries. No. People do not have a right to just step across the threshold and hit you with a barrage of information and think that it's okay. Even if you're in a relationship with that person, friendship, or that person has a right to be in your space for some reason, that even within that, we have to have better energetic boundaries. The other thing that came to me through that was really realizing, and I had this in a discussion with somebody else this morning, is we can't sacrifice ourselves for somebody else's growth. And I think that was just another moment as it kind of rolled out of my mouth, is how much self-sacrificing have I been doing that somebody else benefits from and I get nothing back. And being somebody who's a metaphor and analogies, I think in pictures, my communication is very different. But for me, it's very much like, asking somebody what we're giving away. It's kind of like somebody saying, I'm going to need all this stuff from you. And you're like, oh, here's a kidney. Do you want part of my liver? Should I just give away another organ? What do I not need? Like, what do you need to live and survive? I'm going to give you all of my survival tools. And then you're left holding none. And you're wondering, and this is me personally wondering aloud, geez, why is my body shutting down? Why do I feel like shit every time I'm engaging with this person? Why, you start asking these why questions. So if you're left walking away after communication with somebody, and you're just exhausted and you're burnt out, and sometimes it takes days to recover, there's multiple things in there. You have to be able to protect your own energy, understanding your own space, recognizing the vampires, creating boundaries with people, and getting people to respect and honor those boundaries. I have a visual I didn't draw out yet today, but it's the way my guides have kind of been showing me is, and this will probably go into a deeper teaching, but kind of understanding that boundary. And that if you think about yourself like in this bubble, and everybody kind of being in their own energy bubble, and how it is to navigate that. And when you have an energy vampire, they basically stick themselves inside of your bubble without permission, instead of figuring out what those boundaries are for two bubbles to coexist within a container, an energy container, if you will. Okay. So there's a way to do that without allowing somebody to come inside your own energy bubble without, that's why you're being drained. I was trying to think of something funny to say, but I was getting like dirty pictures again. It's like, you wouldn't just walk into a room with strangers and allow somebody to be like, hey, we're going to share these pants. Let me step into these pants with you. You wouldn't. You would feel violated. You would feel like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, like we haven't got to that part of the date yet. So you know what I mean? Like, you're not walking around just being like, here, share this with me. Let's be skin to skin contact when I don't know you, or even if I do know you, is this even appropriate behavior? So use whatever image works for you to break through the pattern. I'm using a couple of different ones, but that's been massive realization today. And I want to dig deeper into the energy vampire thing, recognizing I have this old pattern of a model that was already a dysfunctional model to start with. And I can't have, that place of dysfunction is never healthy. If you're modeling dysfunction, you can't continue to model it. I mean, dysfunction is dysfunction, right? So again, I think the more that we strip labels away, the more that we go to a general place of observation when we're working through our patterns, we can realize that, and this is probably a totally separate conversation, but we can realize that everything's all one. Everything's always one. You're always one person no matter where you are. So your expression, your behavior, relationship to everything is the same no matter where you are. So if you're crushing it in some part of your life, apply that mentality to a place that's suffering. So it's just, how do you need to feel? Examine the thing, sit with it, figure out why it's doing what it's doing, what you're feeding it, what it's asking for, those kinds of things, and then apply that. So if you're doing it in a really beautiful, healthy way somewhere else, that means you can replicate that in other parts of your life that are suffering, that are still being, purging and healing, and bringing everything back to unity. Our goal right now is to bring everything into unity, and it's a process. And this is going to be done in a couple of months from a global perspective, but internally, your internal job, bringing yourself back into unity, recalling those pieces, the fragments that are out there, putting light and love into the spaces that no longer serve, that need to be transmuted and released, those shadows that we talk about, and not looking at yourself as a separate self. And so when you stop parsing yourself out in these multiple places and think of yourself as one whole unit, and then seal that energy up around that, I think that we can get to much healthier places. And at least it's a start. And I think there's more to come with that. But this is what I've learned in the last couple of days, that I've really been sitting with and working to practice. And, it's a struggle for somebody who I am a mouthy person who is direct and bold and often very, I don't like the word blunt because I feel that indicates a certain meanness with it, but I am direct. And I've been told that I cut with a scalpel in terms of the surgical precision of getting to the root of an issue. Even with that, I hate confrontation. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I work really hard to keep control on my mouth and my tongue. And the last thing I want to do is use that scalpel-like razor and slice somebody in a way that is hurtful and harmful and detrimental to their growth. And my process in this is also learning, how do I communicate my boundaries and what I need to be in a healthy relationship, and then asking the other person to do the same thing. I want that person to not only honor and respect my energetic space, I want them to honor and respect their energetic space. And so I want to be able to model that for somebody else, but I need to set that out and asking them to meet me and do the same. If we can meet each other in that space where we're honoring and individually respecting ourselves, and we do that for the other person we come into contact with, I mean, just think about how rapidly we can see transformation happen, not just open and healthy and fruitful dialogue and conversation, but also the healing that can happen when we can appropriately be there with for ourselves and for each other, conversely as well. So I feel something else completely coming on with that. So I'm going to end this one now. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next.